Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds for Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny Free Agency Review, straight from under the hood of the car, replacing a belt that blew up on the car. I'm dressed like it. Somewhere, Frankie and the boys are absolutely spitting on the floor, throwing stuff at the computer screen or TV screen, whatever they're watching on. You know what? I probably should have got dressed up maybe a little bit, but I was working right until that point. Why not just skip the show altogether, you ask? Well, it's the dopamine rush that I get. I can't speak for Kenny. For me, it's the dopamine rush I get from hanging out with all of you and some of your crazy comments, like good old T Will, who says, free agent review. I thought this was a Jets show. Everyone knows the Jets don't do anything during free agency. I actually think that this is probably maybe the most exciting free agency year that we've ever seen from the Winnipeg Jets with the stuff that's going on. I want to talk about it. I know another guy who wants to talk about it. That would be our main man, Ken Weeb, a man who just happens to have the best music in the business. If you want to hear that music, well, wait no longer. Here you go. Ken, I should remind people, if they want to look a little bit more like your dapper self and a little bit less like they just popped their head out from underneath the hood of a car, they should head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in loudly, proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right, have you looking like $1 million. Even, I bet they got some great summer stuff going on here. Speaking of great summer stuff, we're very excited to grab a guy who's usually to a degree on summer vacation here, taking a very quick break to come on the Kenny and Renny Show, which is like a vacation in and of itself, folks. You know that. We'd like to welcome in Elliotte Friedman to the program. It has been far too long, Elliotte. All these times, I can't believe you say yes to Ken when he asks you to come on. You have my permission to hang up the phone on him anytime you want. Not that you need it. You're too nice of a guy. Maybe you shouldn't be that nice. You should just hang up on the guy. But while we have you here, kind of just give us your take of what happened with the Nikolai Ehlers situation, how he ended up in Carolina, what took so long. What were you hearing as this saga unfolded?
You know what, Sean, to be honest, like from the beginning, you always pick a team, right? And you say, I'm going with that team until I'm proven wrong. And Carolina was my team for him. I really believe that he was the guy and that they were the team for him. And they tried to trade for him for a couple of times. And then finally it got done. Now, I think some other teams took a run at it. I think that Washington was absolutely a team that took a big run at it. But at the end of the day, Carolina was the team to beat, and I'm not surprised they got him. Why did it take so long? I think there were a couple of reasons. Number one, like he didn't formally tell the Jets that he was going to market till right before the draft. So he's a guy who likes to think about things, apparently. And then
a little bit of
probably got a telephone call coming in.
Yeah, we'll get him back at some point. Ken, anything on your end of like that point that he was just making on the why it took so long?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he wanted to go. I think that he had a pretty good idea. He would have been prepared, right? What we know about Nikolai Ehlers, he's prepared. So I think that he would have had an idea of what had some intrigue to him. But once you get to July 1st, now all of a sudden your agent is fielding a bunch of offers. Now, not everyone can do it, but I think there's tons of interest in Ehlers. So I think he just wanted to maybe talk to a few coaches and see how they viewed his role.
Yeah.
And once he did that, I think he was pretty happy with again, I don't know he spoke to Rod Brindamore, but I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Yeah, let's get Elliotte back in here. You'd think.
I'm sorry, somebody called me. Nobody called me while I'm on. Come
How could they not? I thought everyone across the country had stopped and was watching
Yeah, I
KNR
know.
right now.
Like it's enough of this stuff. Like I'm trying to do an interview here. But basically, like I heard you guys talking about it. Like I mean, you guys know Ehlers was frustrated at times in Winnipeg because the first line opportunity wasn't really there unless it was on his off wing, and I think that. I think that that was part of the recruitment process was where am I going to play? Like, where do you see me playing in your roster? And I think obviously he liked what he heard from Carolina. I'll tell you the one thing I thought that was really strange, guys, is that he's going to be 30 on Valentine's Day, 6-year deal. Like that's rare. Like to leave a year on the table at this point in your career, that's really unusual.
And even more rare when you consider the Jets might have been willing. I mean, we don't have it for sure, but pretty sure they would have gone 7 or 8 years on Ehlers, don't you think, Elliot? Or what were you hearing in terms of their pitch?
I'm sure they would have. I mean, you guys heard what Kevin Cheveldayoff said. They made him a pretty big offer. I'd be curious to know what the number was too, because I think he could have gotten easily 9.5 on the open market. We always heard that one thing about Nick was that he was probably going to take a little bit less to make sure that he, on a good team he could win. But he could have gotten 9.5, and I'm not at all surprised about the number. I was a little bit surprised about the term.
A hard cap on the amount of time we have with you. What do you think of the fit for that team? It's always talking about Carolina and how they don't have enough offense come the playoffs. You talked about them being a team that have been trying to land this big fish for years. Why do they want Nikolai Ehlers so bad, and how many of their issues does he solve, Elliot?
Well, the thing is, I think Ehlers is a heck of a player. And the biggest issue with him is he hasn't always produced in the playoffs either. I think that's always been the big knock on him. But the one thing about Carolina is you've got to be able to skate. And because, Brindamore is a guy who demands a lot from his team at both ends of the ice, forechecking and the way they play defense. Like Ehlers can skate. He's a great skater. And I think when you're a great skater, like one of the reasons that they were so desirous of Keandre Miller is that he's a tremendous skater, right? So, I think from that point of view, he's a really good fit for them. Like I think all good players make it work. The one thing I always know about Carolina is, especially it happened too with Rantanen. Brindamore likes straight lines, right? And he likes straight line, pound it in, forecheck, get it. If they're going to try to score a bit more, they're probably going to have to allow a little bit of creativity. And I know that during his time in Winnipeg, sometimes moments Ehlers was a little bit too creative for some people's liking. But the bottom line is he's a creative, talented guy. And I have no doubt that when you put this kind of investment into him, you're gonna make sure that he can work for you. And I do believe in Ehlers' case, if he didn't like what he was told by the Carolina coaching staff, he would probably be in Washington.
Right on. I mean, Sean and I will talk more about Ehlers when you're gone, but since we only have a small amount of time, what's your impression of the Jonathan Toews signing, and how is it being viewed around the league?
Well, I thought it was, I'm happy that it happened because I think from purely a romantic point of view, I think a lot of people wanted to see him play with the Jets. And it sounds like, and I think this is the most important thing, guys, is that this wasn't about the Jets just made him a huge offer. This is about a guy who wanted to go to Winnipeg, and that it was legit. It wasn't just like, oh, that's the biggest offer, we're going to take it. No, it was, this is a place I'd really like to go. And, I mean, some people said to me, 3 years, what can you really expect? And I think it's a good question. But after watching Gabriel Landeskog, who came back from an incredibly significant injury to play the way he played, I think in this day and age, if you are serious and you are, and these NHL teams, they have some of the best modern facilities available to them. If you are willing to use that kind of information and you are serious about it, you can make a difference. I think we're all curious to see it next year. How much is it going to work? How is it going to go? But after Landeskog this year, I believe almost anything can happen. Like, I'll tell you this, like, I saw Nyquist yesterday. Like, to me, that's a good buy low candidate. I always look at guys like Nyquist 1 year coming off a rough year. It's kind of like a Vander Kane or Chris Kreider. like a year, you're like people are doubting this is good, or does this situation work? I like gambles like that. I think they can. I think they can. Those are the ones you have to bank on.
Elliot, our time with you is come and gone. Hard 10 minutes. We really appreciate you coming in here. Whenever people ask me about you, I've got the same line I say all the time. He's a really great teammate.
He's a complete idiot.
Yeah, well, that if I've had a couple drinks in me, that's what it gets to. But it always starts out with me talking about you being a really great teammate, because I got to say this, being on your team at Sportsnet and the way that you handle people, you give people the time, you help people out.
It's kind of you to say, Sean.
It's great stuff.
Really
and before I let you go, you had a phenomenal year. You're the GOAT. This is a what have you done for me lately business. So I hope you're not thinking of resting on your laurels. Get back.
I lost Sean at the end there, Kenny. I couldn't hear what he finished with.
It was actually nice. It was actually nice.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, I'm glad. I appreciate it, Sean. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
I wouldn't come on with you two guys if I didn't feel very strongly about the two of you as well. And so it's important to have good teammates on the ice and at work. So I appreciate it, boys.
You betcha. Okay, thanks,
Take care, my friend. Have a great summer. Cheers.
I love this line. There he goes, folks. The best of the best. Absolutely rocks. It always gives us a good peek behind the curtain. And like I said, always. I mean, you want to see a guy who spends his time out doing podcast after podcast, and he's got us to do. He's got NHL Network to do. He dips down to the States. He's popping on Spitting Chicklets, all these different kind of things. The guy is tireless, absolutely tireless. And I also got to say, hey, Ken, I remember at the pool last year, we were all sitting around by the pool, and he didn't have the time because he was working so hard on his phone to come and sit down and chat with us because he was working. But as he was doing it, he ordered a round of drinks for everybody sitting around the pool. Again, great teammate. And you know me, all you got to do is buy me a drink and I'm sold on you. So there you go. He knew the way to my heart, most definitely. Let's Ken, are we doing a show on Jonathan Toews when it's all said?
Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna do that too. And just for the folks, just don't turn off because Elliot's gone. We've got another guest coming up around 3:40. Sasha Boumedienne is also going to join us. The Jets 2025 draft pick. We're going to go free agency heavy until that time.
Yeah, Boumedienne or Boumedienne?
Boom is his nickname, so it's probably Boom.
Boumedienne. Okay,
we're going to get it. He did tell us on the conference call, but that didn't help either one of us. As it turns out.
Because we don't have the retention factor going. I mean, I'm not correcting you. I'm probably wrong too. We'll get him to correct us. We should have some kind of thing with him where, like, every time we get his name wrong, we have to like do something. I don't know, like drop down
a swear jar, like
10 push-ups or something like that in the middle of the dressing room. That would be a fair one, I think. If I could still pull off 10 push-ups. Okay, let's get back to it here and the Ehlers thing. Pick up on the kind of thoughts of where you were, what you heard about what took as long as it did, and kind of maybe try and get into Nick Ehlers' head and go through the process of what you think he was thinking. And maybe if you can, the idea for you of where the idea of him moving on from the Winnipeg Jets first kind of came to being the reality.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's, the wooing factor. Let's not forget. Let's go back to the where things were with Ehlers. He's one of the first guys they ever signed before the ELC ended. So in year 3, he got his extension 7 times 6. So that was abnormal, first and foremost. So you knew he was interested in sticking around for the long term. Otherwise, he just could have waited, bridge, see you later. But he enjoyed his time here. So everyone's saying that, Ehlers is turning his back on the Jets. Give me a break. That's not what happened here. He gave the Jets 10 years, maybe the best 10 years of his career. It's up to him to extend. Obviously, I don't think Nick Ehlers is done. I'm just saying a lot of his prime years were spent here producing 8 20-plus goal seasons. So this isn't Nikolai Ehlers saying, I want to get out of here. I don't like Winnipeg, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was a very good fit for a decade. Now he's decided, after listening to a bunch of pitches, including the Jets pitch, that he wants to try something else. What we know or what we'd heard, whether it's first or second hand, he wanted to go to a winner. I'm with Elliot. I think that Ehlers could have made 9.5 from another team. I don't know what that team was. I think the Utah Mammoth were a team that kind of came in late as one of the sleepers. I think that they probably may have been offering the 9s. But the Mammoth, even though, Sean, you and I like what they've done in the offseason, they're not as close as the Carolina Hurricanes. But when you're in Nikolai Ehlers' situation, You're committing the next 6 years. A team that you're with may be a contender today. Are they going to be a contender in 6 years from now? Carolina has proven to be a pretty perennial contender. So that part makes sense. The term I'm very curious about. I thought he'd go for 7. He could have probably, again, I think he would have got a 7 or 8 year offer from the Jets.
Yeah.
I expect the money would have been around Scheifele Hellebuck money. I don't know that the Jets are willing to go over that number, internal cap or not, but I do think they would have been around that number if they didn't. I think they probably even hit that number. But for Ehlers, he's looking, and this is something I just mentioned with Hustler. Sean, if you're a guy who's had trouble with not trouble, but you've had injury issues in your career, playing in the Eastern Conference is a smart move if you're 29 years old, right? It's easier travel, easier on the body. So that is a bonus as you're going into your 30s and especially your mid 30s. So again, opportunity. I've got to remind people saying, Ehlers was on the first power play. That's true. He was also on the first power play for 1 out of those 10 years for the majority of the time. So that's 9 years where he wasn't on the first power play for the majority of the time. So, is he guaranteed first power play minutes in Carolina? I don't think he's guaranteed, but I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to be on it. I see him liking the fit. He would have talked to his buddy Patrick Laine about Sebastian Aho. Sean, I think weren't you there the gold medal year for Finland or no? Were you covering it that year, or was that the year after?
No.
Either way, Aho. He has a great direct line on Aho. So I mean, he's he's a very gifted player. Whether it's Seth Jarvis or Svechnikov on the other wing, it's a pretty good line. You have the potential to be on. Not that he didn't play on good lines here, but I mean, he checked a lot of the boxes he would have been looking for in free agency. I don't think he took the biggest number. But again, that's his choice. And he went to a place where he's going to be comfortable. We've talked to a lot of players, Sean, who played in Carolina. They love playing there. Yes, they stay under the radar to a degree, but there's it's a great hockey market. It's a great place to live. I think his sister lives in Florida, so a lot shorter flight from there than it is to Winnipeg. Maybe family's a factor there too. That's up to him to tell us. But I mean, again, if you're putting yourself in Nikolai Ehlers' shoes, this destination made sense to us from the beginning, so it should still make sense to us now, right? I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Boy, this is honestly, with an hour and with Sasha coming in, I don't know that there's enough time to tackle all of this kind of stuff. There's lots to be said. So for me,
we got tomorrow too.
There was a moment, and people know that this isn't anything that I haven't said on the show before. I'd said at the beginning of the year that I thought Nikolai Ehlers was gone, and I thought the biggest opportunity they had to have him stay was for Arniel to kind of shape the team a little bit more around him, give him the opportunities that he'd been missing, kind of find a way to integrate him more, create more opportunities for him. He did exactly that. I don't think there's anything more than that Scott Arniel could have done to have wooed Nikolai Ehlers to stay. And I think that in the end, he probably made it a little bit more difficult in Nikolai Ehlers' mind than even Nikolai Ehlers thought it was going to be. But I'd said this. I had a conversation with Nick Ehlers, and this would be me reading things, but there was a little bit of things unsaid, but said with eyes and said right out loud. But when Kyle Connor had his knee taken out by Strome against the Anaheim Ducks last year, that was at a Kenny and Renny live event that happened. It was out for a while. Nikolai Ehlers stepped in on that line with Mark Scheifele and Gabe Vilardi, and that line was just unbelievably explosive. Had a conversation, you've heard me tell this story before, with Nick Ehlers, in which I kind of realized, it seemed odd at the time, but that Nick Ehlers, who'd basically been in the Jets top 6 for almost a decade, had never really played with Mark Scheifele before. That's weird. Like, that's really, really weird that on a top 6 that a guy's in for that long, he hasn't played with the top center. Most other teams don't operate like that. And so I think that in itself right there, you heard Elliott touch on it, the idea that he was unhappy with his opportunities and not able to get to that top line. The Jets are a different team, and one of the things that makes them different, you heard Rick Bowness talk about it, you hear guys like Nick Lynham rail on it over and over again about the inability for the Jets to break up that top line. This is the way it goes, and it's lasted through 3 different coaches, so it's basically an organizational philosophy that Mark Scheifele is going to get to play with who Mark Scheifele wants to play with. We know that's going to be Kyle Connor, and it used to be Blake Wheeler, and now it's Gabe Vilardi. No one else is invited. to that line, right? And so no one really got burnt by that. It used to be Patrick Laine got burnt by that to a degree. But Patrick Laine left a long time ago. So the guy who's left behind and who is most burnt by that philosophy, most underutilized by that philosophy, most frustrated by that philosophy is Nick Ehlers. I had a conversation with him at that time where I was like, really? You haven't really played with him before? And his tone to me was like, isn't that crazy? And I do think it's crazy. I do. And now I get why the Jets do it. And I get they've created success based around that. It is one of these things where we talked about just kind of like maybe playing Hellebuck a little bit less in a season. You don't know if playing him less in the season would make him a better playoff goaltender, because it's a question that has gone unanswered in Winnipeg because they don't go down that road. Well, they never really went down that road in Winnipeg to see if it makes them a better team to break up that top line and move guys around. But regardless, the one thing, as much as he was used, yes, he got used on the power play more often. Yes, he was given more opportunity under Scott Arniel, but it was still clearly and abundantly obvious that Nikolai Ehlers was always going to be a second line player. It didn't matter if he jumped up onto that first line and things blew up like they did when he was up there, with the points started pouring in the net like they did when he was up there. He was never going to get that opportunity. And for me, that decision was made a long time ago. I think it was made before this year started. Now, did he get pulled a little bit back in this direction? Yes, I think so. But in the end, I think the seeds were sown a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, that Nikolai Ehlers, when he got to unrestricted free agency, was going to be leaving for a team that treats their top six like a true top six. Interchangeable parts. Try this guy with this guy. This isn't working. Let's switch this up and go to this guy. Yes, the Jets prioritize consistency. He was a victim of that consistency. What I think the question that leads out of that, Ken, if I'm right, is if the seeds were sown and Nikolai Ehlers was leaving regardless, was there a mistake made here by the Winnipeg Jets in not moving the player and getting an asset back? If it could have been seen that the way he was going to be moving on from the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I would put it this way. Short of trading Nikolai Ehlers for Mikko Rantanen at the deadline this year, I don't see a trade that made sense. I mean, you're not trading Nikolai Ehlers for futures, right? Nikolai Ehlers was on the best team in the regular season during the this year. You're not trading him for draft picks. You're not trading him. Could you have found a Logan Stankoven type of deal for Ehlers? Well, then you would have been a little bit more tempted. But for me, and I'm not saying it would have been 1-for-1, but the only way for me that Ehlers got dealt at the deadline, even if you thought he was walking, was if you got someone like Mikko Rantanen. Now, you probably would have had to throw in something else, first rounder or whatever it is, and provided you would have had to have Rantanen be interested in coming to Winnipeg. So I'm sorry. For the people saying the Jets are getting nothing, I'm sorry. Asset managers, this is not how it works. When you are a contending team and you're trying to win the Stanley Cup and you've won 2 playoff games in the previous 2 seasons, you don't trade your third or fourth, let's just say third best forward, if that's what you want to say. For those of you, some people say second, fine, whatever number you want to use. You're not trading one of your best 4 forwards for futures at the deadline and then wondering why you didn't win in the playoffs. I'm sorry. That's not what teams do. Carolina's a great example. They had tons of UFAs the year before. Look at the Leafs. The Leafs haven't won the Cup since 1967. Should they have traded Mitch Marner for someone different than Nicholas Waugh? No, they're trying to win the Cup. So you don't do that when you're trying to win. And hey, I get it. When a team finishes 10 wins short of the goal, you can say, you should have traded him. But you don't trade a player for futures in that scenario if you're the Jets, and no one can convince me otherwise. And the Jets didn't get nothing for Ehlers. They got 8 20-goal seasons in a 10-year window. Nikolai also changed the narrative that was, whether people think it's unfair or not, he had not produced well in the playoffs. This year he had 5 goals. And I'm here to tell you, Sean, if Ehlers doesn't get hurt in game 80 or 81 against Chicago, he probably scores 10 playoff goals. And if he does, the Jets are probably in the conference final against Edmonton. They're not losing that series if Nikolai Ehlers is healthy throughout instead of joining the series late. That's my personal view.
People are talking about the KFC contract coming up. I
Sure.
think it's a good bridge into we won't get into that. We don't have time to. But the idea of the internal cap as it existed with Nikolai Ehlers' contract. The one thing I'd say with this is it's like if you take a look at what Mark Scheifele signed for and what Connor Hellebuck signed for, like in my mind and at the time, I thought the same thing. They left a lot of money on the table. The way things are turning here, the way contracts are going, if they each would have waited a year and this was them in the UFA window, I think those guys would have got paid like crazy. I think you're talking about Hellebuck making 10.5, maybe 11. I think that you're starting with a 9 when it comes to Mark Scheifele. The one thing that I would say about this is, and I don't know that the Jets necessarily, I think in the past they've kind of operated like this. I think they'd like to operate like this. But when you get steal of a deal contracts for players like that, yeah, maybe teams win if they go down. You know, Boston did that for years. It kept them competitive for a lot of years where they kept their contracts down. And that's what they did there. And maybe you want to go be that kind of team. But at some point, I think it's hard to govern a team and say, well, we're not letting someone make more money than the MVP, or we're not letting someone make more money than our 1C. If those players signed at an extremely bargain basement value, right? Like an internal cap is one thing, but when you've basically somehow got players to leave millions upon millions of dollars on the table, I think it gets hard to ask other people going forward to do the same thing, right? And so I don't think that this was the case. I think that the number that those two players are at, I think the Jets probably got very close to that number with Nikolai Ehlers. I don't know if it made them uncomfortable. I'm just tackling the idea of the internal cap. I think that's a skewed conversation in Winnipeg now because Connor Hellebuck is such an important player, a Hart Trophy winning player, a back-to-back Vezina and 3-time Vezina winner, and decided to take a contract that you see all the goalies that are signing this year and last year the same contract as he did. They're not the players he is. I just think it's tough. It makes it skewed a little bit to try and hold to an internal cap because that internal cap is so depressed by the decisions of your two top players that it's hard to ask other people to go along with it and leave as much money on the table as those two players inexplicably to me have decided to leave on the table.
Well, I mean, they're also getting paid a big number going into their, mid to late 30s. So, I mean, I totally get it. And I know where you're coming from. And it's a great debate. Even now with seeing what Florida's done, Sean, there's still, it's still a fact that no team with, a player making more than 10 million has won the cup, right? In the salary cap era. So until McDavid and Draisaitl break through and they're into their new deals, or some other team with big ticket guys wins the cup, I think the debate is going to continue. I'm not saying the internal number is right, and this isn't a debate for much longer because Kyle Connor's next deal is going to be north of 8.5 million. We both agree on that. Yeah. So, but to this point, and you used Boston's a great example. When their internal cap was at that number where Chara and Marchand and Bergeron were, they were in the cup final. Now they missed the playoffs once McAvoy and some of those other guys went over that big number. So, I mean, it's an evolving league. The cap is going up dramatically, and it will still go up dramatically. Man, Sean, July 1st, what were we standing around waiting? When we're waiting, we see the Raptors center sign for $120 million. Like, I've never heard of this guy. I'm sorry. Yeah. He's making $20-25 million. The best NHLer still hasn't hit 15. So the debate is going to continue. Internal cap stuff, it works for teams when it works, and when it doesn't work, well, then you got to adjust. So I don't think this is a money thing for Ehlers at all. I mean, I think it was some opportunity, but this is the same thing we talked about when Laine was here. It's not like the guy playing ahead of him is an unproductive player. The guy playing ahead of Ehlers in terms of minutes on the left side had 97 points last year. Yeah. Nikolai Ehlers' career high is 64, and you can say chicken and egg on that, and I've got time to listen, but it's not like was being held back by someone who hasn't been a productive player. And the big thing too, the ice time, folks, and I get it. The ice time, I would like to see him get a few more shifts, but the shift numbers between Connor and Ehlers wasn't a wide discrepancy. Ehlers just takes shorter shifts than those other two guys. He should have got a few other double shifts. Fine, I'm okay with that. But it's not like he was sitting around and not getting ice time. And the points per 60, folks. I'm sorry, Sean, we've talked about this a ton. It's like expected goals to me. Points per 60 it has some value, but it's not the be all and end all. Because if a player automatically was going to produce more, if he played more, all coaches would play those guys more.
Yeah. To me, that's a classic misunderstanding of people that don't understand the pacing that certain hockey players operate at. Mathieu Perreault was always one of the higher guys in the league when it came to points per 60. And every time you saw him get used further and further up the lineup with more time, things tailed off. Hey, I saw something today, Ken. I don't know if it was goals per 60 or points per 60, but Zachary Bolduc, who the Montreal Canadiens just picked up, was second in the league at that. So do we really think that the Canadians just picked up a player that just increases minutes, the goals go up, and now you've got the second highest scoring player in the league? I mean, if you do, I've got some land I'd like to sell you out in the Lactabani area, if that's what you're interested in here. But before we do move on here, the last thing I want to say is I want an explanation, Ken, of this. Is one way of asking it is, how do you fill this hole? But another way of asking it is, what are the Winnipeg Jets losing with Nikolai Ehlers?
Yeah, they're losing a dynamic player. And people, I've enjoyed covering Ehlers for 10 years. I think Nikolai Ehlers should be a consistent 35 goal, 80 point player if he can play 82 games and if he gets a little bit more opportunity. And if he had played more on the top power play. But it's up to Ehlers to do that and show that. So what they're going to be losing a one-man zone entry, Sean. This is a guy who the numbers show it. He helped boost the Jets power play from bottom third to the top. He's not the only dangerous person on that. And there's tons. There's five dangerous players on the Jets power play. He is a guy that is going to be hard to replace because of his speed, because of his tenacity. He's a guy that plays incredibly hard. He's a smart player. He's also a guy that some guys had trouble playing with him on a line because of his east-west creativity. He likes to scribble outside the lines, and that's part of what makes him great. It's also part of what makes him show up on the highlight reel and blowing by Jacob Chychrun in a game in Ottawa before he got traded to Washington. He's not going to be easy to replace, but teams lose quality players. Look at all of the Stanley Cup champions that lost people as cap casualties. I'll miss Nikolai Ehlers. I'll miss watching him. I'll miss covering him. But the fold the franchise, folks, it's not the way it works in the NHL. So how that gets fixed is by Cole Perfetti taking another step and a bunch of other guys trying to be better. It's not an easy player to replace. But the Jets are having to find somebody that can score somewhere between 25 and 30 goals and produce somewhere between 55 and 65 points that had the potential to be an 80 point player.
Okay. What another team gets here is a player who to this day is kind of potentially undiscovered in how a team decides to use him, given the opportunities they try to give him, because he was not everything that Nikolai Ehlers does. And we paint him as, 20 goals, kind of is his cap, because that's what it shows us. And, the points around 60, because that's where like the cap shows us. You're also talking about a guy who didn't have the benefit of like a consistent center for a number of years. Hey, he was beside Vladislav Nemestikov, who was commendable this year and was really important to the Jets in the playoffs, but he's not the kind of centerman who you are going to be getting free points off of, right? Like what Nikolai Ehlers did this year, he did it without a scoring centerman, a point producing centerman, and he's done that for quite a lot of his career.
He played with PLD for 2 years that were productive years in the high 60s. I mean, that was a pretty good line mate for him.
I mean, there was still a little bit of Pierre-Luc Dubois was going with Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti for a little bit there. I remember those lines going, but put it this way. He hasn't had the opportunities that someone like Kyle Connor has had, right? Kyle Connor has always got to ride shotgun beside an amazing point producing center. So everything we know of Kyle Connor is a player who has had the utmost opportunity since he basically first stepped on the ice with the Winnipeg Jets and made his way up to that number one line. So we'll see what happens in that there. The whole thing that you were talking about, the hard to play angle of it, that's real. Like, it's real that players were frustrated with the way that he kind of freelanced and saw the game, and it was a little bit different. I'll say this, Ken, and it's only 1 year, so it's easy for him to potentially backslide. I didn't see that from Nikolai Ehlers this year. I thought Nikolai Ehlers offensively was extremely structured this year, and I give the credit to Scott Arniel, who I think just did a phenomenal job of taking the player and kind of getting him to marrying him to their system, but providing increased opportunity, looking at the player and what the player could do to benefit that system, and looking at the system and showing what it could do to benefit that player and marrying them. So I actually think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's one of the reasons that Carolina always liked him, because they thought we can get him here and marry that to our system. And now I think they've got a perfect example of them doing it. On top of that, so the analytics community loves Nikolai Ehlers. I don't always agree with the analytics community, but this is a player that I do agree with. And I see, I think, a lot of the underlying things that make him a great player. So someone here says, and this is 1,000% true, okay, here we go. AJ Jetsback says, we would not have won the series against the Blues without Ehlers. No one else tries that pass. We are losing game-changing skill every year. This is 1,000%. And I've said this before. We've talked so many times over the years about how the Winnipeg Jets are an amazing comeback team, right? You can't hold them down. They pop their way back. And hey, does anyone remember the year that they fell apart before Paul Maurice left? And there was a game, they started the year with the California trip, and there's a game they're losing, and there's like 2 minutes left to go, and Nikolai Ehlers scores to tie it up and then scores to win it in regulation. Nikolai Ehlers was always central to the Jets coming back in games. And one of the reasons for that, and this is one of the things that I'm actually interested, people talk about their straight lines in Carolina, and he's not going to fit because he's an east-west player, and they like to dump the puck and go get that puck back. You dump the puck and go get the puck back when you don't think you can carry it in. I've said this before. Nikolai Ehlers is a clean zone entry in a can. Crack the can, you're in there. It's that speed, it's dangerous, and it's dangerous not just because it gets you across that line, but it gets the defenders into a defensive position, sinking towards the middle of the ice, backing up on their heels. Now, all you fans who've been watching the Jets for years and know how they operate, what do they do best? They get their opposition backed into the middle of the ice. They work the boards over and over again until they open up that pass into the middle, get it to the middle, boom, it's in the back of the net. That's how they come back in goals all the time. It's hard to do that if you're that team who's bringing it through the neutral zone and turning over the puck and having to reroute and try again. The Jets for years haven't had to do that because you give the puck to Nikolai Ehlers, and that speed is so threatening. He backs you up, or the fear of him means you have to back up, and then Kyle Connor can get it in. Mark Scheifele can get it in. Cole Perfetti can get the puck in clean. So that, I think, is where the Jets are going to miss him the most. I think he creates opportunity that a lot of people don't necessarily see and doesn't necessarily end up on the scoring sheet. I think it's going to affect the Jets. I think it's not going to be as easy to be that miracle comeback team that we've seen them be over and over again over the years. I think, honestly, if there was a secret sauce to that, it was Nikolai Ehlers. Okay, we are going to switch gears here. We'll hop back in because we haven't even got to the signings that they've brought here. But we want to welcome in a special guest in Sasha. Now, Sasha, tell me that we've got to figure something out. Like, I'll do 10 push-ups if I get it wrong from now on, going forward when we're talking with you. But last name, is it Boumediene?
Boumediene. Almost,
okay,
almost.
All right.
Close.
And I'm going to give you the first question.
Yeah, good stuff.
I'm going to do 10
push-ups. Good job. This is great radio. Sasha, thanks for joining us. What have the first few days of development camp been like for you? And how about the first taste of the city for you and what you've been getting outside of the rink?
Yeah, it's been great. All the guys here at Dev Camp. There you go.
I'm a little flushed. Okay.
There you go.
It
Yeah,
won't
like I
be-
said,
it won't be the last time. Sorry.
yeah, all the guys here at Dev Camp, all of them are great guys, and yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. Like I said earlier today, and we got to go down and see, see the Jets rank and their locker room and all that. So it was pretty exciting, and I think we're all just really excited to be here.
Sasha, sorry for interrupting there. I wanted to rewind it just a little bit here. I've heard the trail of your life has taken you to many places. So I've heard about Finland. I've heard about Sweden. I hear no accent in your voice. You're going to school in the States. You went to the USHL. How is it that someone becomes an international man of mystery at the age of 18?
Yeah, like you said, I've been a bunch of different places, but mostly comes from when my dad played hockey. So he's worked in hockey and played hockey. So yeah, I've lived in 6 countries, and from when I was born till I was about 6 or 7, we moved around all the time, and yeah, just spoke English everywhere we were. So yeah, that's kind of how I speak good English, and I learned Swedish and English at the same time when I started talking. So yeah, pretty interesting.
How many languages do you speak, Sasha?
Just Swedish and English. I guess
still good.
Yeah, my parents told me me and my big brother could speak a little Finnish when we were younger, but because my dad speaks Finnish and my grandma speaks Finnish as well. So I guess they just talk to us, but now they don't do it anymore. So we lost it, I guess.
Sasha, I've got 2 daughters, and I ask them uncomfortable questions like this all the time. So I'll ask you as well. But if you could give us the idea of what is something that you've picked up from your time in Finland, like what makes you a little bit Finnish? What is it about you that makes you a little bit Swedish? And what is it that makes you a little bit American?
Finland, I don't know if I picked up too much, honestly. I was born there, didn't live there. I wasn't there too much right after I was born. We got going pretty fast to another spot. I'm not too sure where you went right away, but so I don't know. I guess I'm a little Finnish, sauna a lot and all that. So do all that stuff, but yeah, not too much from the Finnish part. But then yeah, Sweden, that's where I grew up. That's where I started playing hockey and spent most of my life, most of my childhood. So I guess I'm a little Swedish in how I play and how I am as a person, and yeah, like I said, I obviously speak Swedish. So I'm a Swede. I'm from there. So and then obviously I've lived here now for 4 years and spent a lot of time in North America. So I feel like I'm a little perfect mix of both. Maybe got the outgoing personality of an American and maybe got the smarts of a Swede.
There you go. How'd you end up at BU, like going through that process, and how would you describe the season that made it all the way to the Frozen Four championship final?
Yeah, I loved my year at BU. Got there for a visit in the middle of the year last year when I was in Youngstown in the USHL there, and yeah, I loved it right away. I kind of wanted to have that setup that we have, and we have great coaches there. So something I felt like I really couldn't miss out on, and playing in the Bean Pod is something really special. So I'm happy about our year and my year, and obviously we had a good run, but not good enough. So just ready to get back up on the horse next year and try to compete for another championship. I love it at BU, and we have a great group of guys there. So really good setup for me.
Sasha, with the way the rules are changing, with the CHL and the NCAA, I'm fascinated by the path that players take, because I know a couple players who are going through that process, and the conversations I find are so fascinating. It used to be really easy. I'm going to the CHL, I'm locked in, I'm done. You know what? I'm going to go play Tier 2 Junior A. I'm going to go here. Or if you're Swedish, usually you stay there and you play in the SHL. Or what were some of the decisions? Like I'm thinking that probably all 3 paths were open to you, or even beyond that, paths were open to you. I'm interested for you how you ended up going through the path that you did to get to where you are in Boston, and how tempting maybe some other paths were, and what those decisions looked like.
Yeah. So, like you said, I had obviously had all options open. Coming from Sweden, was very familiar with the game there, and all my family's there, but my immediate family, right? My grandparents, my cousins, everyone's there. So yeah, I could have easily moved back to Sweden, played there if I wanted to, but I could also have chosen the CHL and played in Major Junior. Obviously, there's a lot of great players who come out of there, and yeah, it's a pretty cool hockey place. The CHL, anywhere you are really. So I really could have chose those, but I felt like the right feel for me was college hockey. I feel like the hype around college hockey right now is pretty special, and yeah, it deserves all of it. I feel like it's pretty cool that you get to spend all that time with your team and go to school at the same time as you play hockey. I'm not the biggest school guy, but yeah, I get it's pretty important too. So yeah, like I said, all the hype around college hockey right now is very, very well deserved, and as it should be. So yeah, when I went on my few visits there, I went on a few visits, and I loved it right away. So I was for sure going to play college hockey.
It's not always a direct or linear path. I mean, for yourself, being a lot's been said about being the youngest guy in the NCAA for at least part of the year, if not all of it. I mean, what was that like to transition to that level and go from maybe not having as many minutes as you're used to then, playing 24 minutes a game in the biggest games? How were you able to progress that way over the course of the year?
Yeah. Yeah, going from it's a big jump for anyone to go from juniors to playing college. It's guys are bigger, stronger, older, more mature, and just better in every way, obviously. So yeah, it was a big jump and big to make it at 17. We obviously had a bunch of like I said earlier, a bunch of talks, and we felt like it ultimately that it was the right decision for me and best for my career and my development path. So and yeah, I say it all the time. I wouldn't change a thing. I knew it was going to be hard to start in the year, and I knew it was going to be tough to play against those older players and more mature guys. But I wanted to take that challenge. That's the challenge I want to take on myself, and I really believed in myself. So yeah, like I said earlier today, we had a clear plan, and we just stuck to the plan and stuck to the process, and the year kind of played out the way we wanted it to. So I was really happy about my end of the year there.
If it was easy, Sasha, every NHL player's kids would then go on and play in the NHL after that. Every pro hockey player would have the same thing happen. For you, your dad living a life playing hockey and being in hockey, having the opportunity and access to, pros the way that you would have growing up. What do you feel that you were able to take away from that experience that you were able to translate into the player you are today?
I just think being around the locker room as a young guy, like I was always in my dad's locker room wherever he was, and just having that atmosphere from right from when I was born. Atmosphere around me, I just kind of learned the ways of kind of how to be a good teammate, and kind of seeing the guys take care of each other, and yeah, seeing what it takes to win and stuff like that. So a lot of different aspects I feel like come into play. But yeah, that's the main thing. I think just the atmosphere in the locker room, and yeah, taking care of your teammates, and being good teammates. So I feel like that's probably the one thing.
Playing for your country, obviously important to you. What was it like, going back to play in your peer group at the U18s, then having such a dominant tournament, setting records for assists and points by a defenseman, and then being named top D-man with Team Sweden?
Yeah, it was really special. Every time I get the chance to play with the national team, it's a blast. I've known all those in our 07 group, known all those guys since I was very young, either playing against them or playing with them. So every time I get to play with Team Sweden, whatever level it's at, it's an honor, and have a blast every time. So yeah, I was fortunate that it went so well individually, but there as well, we obviously didn't get the job done. So yeah, it was a fun tournament, but yeah, not good enough.
Sasha, you talked about that challenge that you wanted to take on going up and playing against bigger, stronger, smarter, more mature players at the NCAA level. And then you go back from that to play with your peer group, and you have that explosion that you have playing with kids your age at that time. Can you give me an idea of how you feel going up and playing with that, that higher level of difficulty and older players, what it was like for you when you kind of went back with your peers? Did you notice that your game had just like taken an elevator up in playing the competition that you played at the NCAA level?
Yeah, that's a good question. I obviously playing college hockey all year, and I hadn't been competing against my own age group in a while, and it was fun to see. I just felt a lot, something that you don't notice playing college hockey. I just felt a lot stronger and felt a lot like more mature and in my decision making and stuff like that. So it's stuff you don't really notice when you're in the same spot, but then when you go play against your own, like you said, your own peers and the guys that are your age, you notice it right away. So I felt real strong, and felt like I really developed at BU, and it's fun to go up against the same age guys.
Sasha, how would you describe your experience at the Combine? I mean, we know what happens every year, but like folks in the chat room, can you take us inside the room? And I know you told us on draft night that your meetings with the Jets were positive, but what's the interaction like? And what's it like as a player to kind of be put on a job interview by, 20 plus teams in such a small span of time?
Yeah, the Combine was a blast. I think the most fun thing was to get to know all the other prospects. You've been hearing about all these guys. They're pretty good hockey players, and real good people as well. You get to hear about them all since you started like growing up and started playing hockey, and mostly the last couple of years, and then just putting a face to the name is pretty cool, and getting to know everyone. And then all the meetings and stuff. It's real fun. It's you just gotta be yourself and enjoy it. It's a special time in your life when especially this summer, when you get drafted, and it's a summer that you've looked forward to your whole life. So you just got to take it all in and be yourself, and not take it too seriously.
I'm not sure if this is something you would have picked up on, because maybe it's just been your reality and it was normal. But one of the things that really struck me about the draft this year were some of the monsters that were taken. Like, there was a lot of really big guys taken in that draft. And I know that the league had been trending smaller and smaller for years. It was about 5 years back that the average weight of an NHLer dropped below 200 pounds for the first time since like 2001 or something like that. Do you feel that maybe you're no small guy, but there's some monsters in there? Do you feel that as you've been growing up, the kind of your peers around you are trending to being larger players again? Are you seeing a trend in the game?
It's something I haven't really thought about, to be honest. But like you said, there were some big boys getting drafted this year and getting drafted high. So it's nothing really thought about. But I mean, if you see in the NHL, most of the teams that win, they're pretty big boys and pretty feisty, and can take take a lot of beating and take some hard hits. So I guess that's what the teams wanted.
You talked about all the preparation for the draft, Sasha. Were you a guy who like looks at the mocks or looks how the rankings have changed, and how did you handle that over the course of the year?
Yeah, it obviously pops up on all social media and all over the place. So it's nothing I go searching for. If it pops up, I'll look, but it's nothing I go searching for. And throughout the year, you try to stay away from it. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's you got to control your own development and control everyone knows how good or how bad they are. So it's all that, you can't control what anyone else thinks. So it's just a waste of time trying to think about what they think of you. So for myself, I know how good I am, and I try not to waste too much time on listening to what other people have to say about me.
All right, Sasha Boumediene knows how good he is. He controls his own development. Let's say the next number of years go exactly as you plan and exactly as you prepare for. What does Sasha Boumediene's game look like at the NHL level, so our fans here who are massive rabid Jets fans can understand what they may be getting down the pipe here?
Yeah, I like to play a two-way game. A guy who uses skating all over the ice to get up the ice and create offense, but also uses skating to defend to make it hard on the other team and other team's top line to make it hard on their best players and use my skating and lengthiness to defend. I feel like, I mean, if the other team doesn't score, you win, right? So yeah, that's something I've really taken pride in this year and getting better at and yeah, a guy who likes to jump up in the play, like I said, and create offense as well. So I try to play that two-way game and a guy who can get relied on in all areas of the ice.
Looking ahead maybe to December, what's Team Sweden going to look like? And then quickly too, just because you've been childhood friends with Victor Klingzel, I mean, what are the Jets getting there? And then maybe just a quick thought on what the strengths of Sweden will be come Christmas time.
Yeah, Victor, you'll get a real good player. He's real deceptive when he gets his speed up and he's wheeling around. It's pretty hard to catch him. You kind of want to back off a little bit because you never know if he's going to shoot it, pass it, or whatever he's going to do. He can dangle you in tight. So yeah, you'll get a real skilled player who makes real high end plays in the ozone and yeah, uses skating all over the ice. So real good player and yeah, the Jets are fortunate to have him.
Sasha, we just really, really appreciate your time here, taking the time to introduce yourself to us and your audience. Thank you for that. And I'll say going forward, we will reach out to the rest of the Winnipeg media and let them know the punishment for getting your name wrong. We will enforce it. So we'll get this squared away and we'll get it done right. Hopefully I'm the last one that screws that up, Sasha.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
For the rest of the week. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Bye.
Great kid.
Great kid. Man, yeah. And really Klingzel can really fire it. I was, down at development camp today. I mean, we heard how, Jason Bukla and Sammy talked about him. I mean, this guy can really rip it, and Boumediene can really skate. Boumediene. Yes. Can really skate.
Ken.
I'll get it later, buddy.
Give me 10.
No.
I said I'd enforce it. I said I'd enforce it
later on.
Yeah, people need to know. See, he's back. He jumped back into the green room. He's coming in to make sure that you do the 10%.
Later on, buddy. Don't worry.
Move on. I think we closed out the conversation with Nikolai Ehlers. Let's move on to what the Jets were.
There we go. Frosty's got everybody covered. Write this down, people.
You need
Write this down.
E, or at least the capital E there.
That's true.
E-N. Okay. All right. Let's start with the first day. Pearson and Koepke. What are the Jets? What's the plan there? What do you see that the Jets are trying to do with those picks? Signings?
For sure. Koepke's an interesting guy, right? So, he's a guy that just, we try to connect the dots when we can, right? So I'm looking through the list. I mean, Jets are trying to get faster and more physical on the fourth line potentially. So I go and look at Koepke, and you look at his year, Sean, 10 goals, 17 points, 177 hits for a guy who averaged 11 minutes per game of ice time. Like, that's a lot of hits in a short amount of time. And I got the whole typical, usual, oh, well, if you don't, you only get a high hit total if you don't have the puck. Well, Sean, as we know, and you want to be a strong forechecking team, separating the defenseman from the puck. Yeah, you didn't have the puck to begin with, but having a hit is not a detriment on many occasions. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily getting yourself out of position with some big blow. When you're a fourth line forward, your job is to get in on the forecheck, separate the defenseman from the puck, and create a turnover. That is a positive play. That is not a negative. So a high hit total can be an important part for a forward like Cole Koepke. More importantly, he's a double-digit goal scorer. We talked often about the Jets' depth and up front, but they didn't have enough scoring in the playoffs. So can Koepke be a regular? That's up to him. I think he can. He's got obviously some familiarity. He was a teammate of Dylan Sandberg. He knows Neil Pionk super well. His integration process will be fairly simple. He also kills penalties. What are the Jets looking to do better next year, Sean? Be a better penalty killing team. They moved from the bottom third to the middle third. They'd like to move to the top third, so he can help them there. Tanner Pearson's an interesting one. Some folks are wondering, where's the fit? Tanner Pearson is not a go get him Jet type of player. He's not a fast player, but he's an incredibly intelligent player, and he goes to the hard areas. Big bodied guy. Scored 20, or you think he scored 20, maybe 6 different times. Consistent double-digit guy. Sorry, he doesn't, not 6 times, but talked with Mike Fuda about him. Won a championship with the LA Kings, and is a guy who is very motivated. I mean, he went from having to take a PTO last year to signing a 1-year deal this year. Where is he going to fit? That's up to him. I mean, he knows Mark Scheifele, grew up with him, played with him on the Barrie Colts. Again, a guy who's motivated. I think he played on the Montreal team that knocked the Jets out maybe in the playoffs that year also. So has some play. No, he wasn't?
No, he was with Vancouver that year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah. Anyways, good player, smart player, but someone who wants to show what he's got left. Now, Nyquist, we're in agreement. We talked about this. Buy low guy, as Elliot mentioned, really smart player, can skate, not overly physical, but not shy either. He's 1 year removed from playing on a line with Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. So those opportunities weren't as plentiful last year after Stamkos and Marchessault came in. The power play time probably was a bit diminished. They struggled defensively. Their systems play was not great. He had a down year, didn't get a whole lot accomplished after he went to Minnesota. I get people that have reservations. He's also a guy that's been very productive over the course of his career, and he's a very smart guy. So now it's about showing what you have left. I'm not saying he's going to be a guaranteed 20-goal guy, but I think he's comfortable in the 15 to 18 range, and if he gets you 20, it's a good year for him. So that's sort of where I see things in terms of the additions coming in. And then the Jets added a bunch of depth players that could be in that Dominic Toninato range. Walker Duehr is a guy who, spoke to our friends in Calgary who've covered him. Some nights he can be very effective. He can be physical. He's fast. But other nights he's been a little inconsistent. So that's the big thing for him. Cale Clegg is a guy on the back end who's got NHL experience. He can run he's the Dylan Coughlin in the organization, a guy that can give you NHL minutes, but probably a first pairing guy in the minors if he's down there. So some smart pickups. And then Samuel Fagamo, I think, is very interesting, right? He's got time with LA. He scored 40 in the American League 2 years ago. So can he push himself into the conversation, or is he just there to provide some insulation for the American League guys? That's sort of what we're going to wait and see on.
Okay, so those 5 guys, the one thing the Winnipeg Jets are doing is they're following the blueprint that they've established for quite some time now. It's the same blueprint that they had last year, right? You want to add some depth up and down the lineup. So you go get guys like Coughlin last year. You get guys like Fleury, right? You're trying to make sure that you've got options and a lot of different options, and you can kind of play different ways, handle injuries, and, just maybe handle the grind that the Winnipeg Jets know they're going to play. The style of play that the Winnipeg Jets play, we know it's hard, and they've been playing that way very effectively. This will be the 3rd straight year. I mean, even beyond that, they'd started that and tailed off at the end of the year. The first year Rick Bowness was here, they did pretty much a full season of grinding in Rick Bowness's last year. Last year, they stepped on the gas pedal on the first game and held it on right until the end of game 82. So the Winnipeg Jets are at a stage where they need bodies to continue playing that style of play. So this is what I see. To your point, the 5 signings that they'd had yesterday are just basically those guys who have 1 foot, probably 2 feet planted in the AHL, but have the ability to step up and jump in and fill those roles. Like you said, Dominic Toninato, perfect example of a guy that they're trying to replace with that.
Pearson, another great guy, right? Just won the Calder Cup.
Yeah.
If you need him, you can play.
Pearson, I think, is just a perfect example of when we're talking about that blueprint. One of the things that the Jets, and some people are upset about this, eventually they keep going down this road. It's probably going to have an effect on them, but the Jets clearly prioritize maturity with their lineup. And that's why a lot of people look at this and they think they're getting a little bit older. I was actually very interested to see with the moves that the Edmonton Oilers made. The Edmonton Oilers were the oldest team in hockey this last year. And then they let a lot of those older guys go just by letting Corey Perry. I wonder what happens to your average age, right? But the Jets, if I remember correctly, were around the 4th or 5th oldest team in the league last year. My guess is they're going to trend upward and possibly into like the top 3 this year, because they prioritize age, they prioritize experience. It's something that they feel that is added to their team, made their team better. I'm looking at players like Nino Niederreiter. I'm looking at players like Vladislav Nemesnikov. I'm looking at players like Shen. The players that they like to bring in are seasoned veterans that they value that. So I think Pearson is part of that, a guy that they feel that they can bring in. He can handle those situations. He's mature enough to fill those roles. And at the same time, you've got young guys like, David Gustafson, who's able to jump up and, spell you off in those kind of situations. Koepke, I take a look at him. The Winnipeg Jets are trying to set the record for the most players from a certain area of Minnesota in their lineup. Like if they keep getting more childhood friends, they're going to have to start calling the guy that Dylan Sandberg played road hockey with in his driveway if they want to fit any more of these players into their lineup out of that Duluth area. But this is something I see as being, so they lose Mason Appleton. We haven't said a lot about that. Mason Appleton, you take a look at his numbers. He's got 10 goals and 12 assists in 71 games. You take a look at Cole Koepke. He's got 10 goals and 7 assists for 17 points in 73 games. They're not really that far off each other. And my guess is if Cole Koepke had similar, opportunities, that he'd be, in that kind of range of what Mason Appleton had. He's a guy that potentially can step in and play that vanguard role I've talked about, that tip of the spear role. He's edgy, he's fast, he can get in on the forecheck. So that's what the Winnipeg Jets like to do, that first point of contact. Tie up the guy, next guy comes in, that's Adam Lowry. He gets control, moves it to the next guy who starts doing. So I think the Jets are just basically trying to recreate what they had in last year. I think they like their blueprint that they had last year, and they're just taking these players go out, this player comes in. Tanev goes out, Pearson comes in. Mason Appleton goes out, Koepke comes in. I think the Winnipeg Jets have done a pretty good job of finding those players. Like Hayden Fleury was one last year, not a lot of people talked about, and now he comes in and they find a guy that kind of fits their system. So I think Koepke is a guy that they could actually get more out of than what we see from him. Is he limited? For sure he's limited. I mean, this is just another player that is here to make the Jets harder to play against. So for those people who think that the Jets need to change who they are as a team, maybe change the idea that they've got a bottom 6 that are, we're going to grind you kind of team, to being more offensive, that's not happening here in this situation. The Jets are basically, in my mind, trying to recreate what they did last year and then see if they can go and add to the playoff success after that, or address things at the trade deadline and say, if we need certain things, we think that this team is going to get us to the playoffs and then get us to the trade deadline, and then we can add what we feel we need to at that time. Nyquist, I like this. I like this ad. Now, he's an older player. I believe he's 36 years old, okay? And if you take a look, a lot of what he's, done over his career, he's kind of established the kind of player he is. I'm just going off of so that year that he has, what is it, Ken? 70 points that he has?
75,
75 points. He has 2 years.
Goals.
I remember covering some of those games. I think we did 2 of them on Hockey Night in Canada. Great player in those games, like eye-popping player I had found. Now, I know I had a conversation with people in that organization last year with the Nashville Predators who talked about how it was disruptive for him that guys like Jonathan Marchessault and Steve Stamkos came in, and his instinct, and I believe this is, to me, Ken, it's a confidence thing. He spent the vast majority of his career being one thing, popped up and found another level for 1 year in Nashville. And then these other guys come in and he's like, well, I'm no Steve Stamkos, I'm no Jonathan Marchessault, and then takes a back seat kind of symbolically, but probably mindset wise. And I was told from people within that organization that there were plenty of efforts to try and convince him otherwise and say, we don't want you deferring to these guys. We brought these guys in to supplement you, not the other way around. We didn't bring these guys in to be first and foremost. We brought these guys in to be a secondary layer to what you are already providing. Clearly, he wasn't able to get over that mentally. He goes to Minnesota after that. It doesn't really work out in Minnesota. So he comes to Winnipeg, a team that we've talked about it on this podcast before, I think are one of the best in the league at putting their arm around a player and saying, listen, you want something, we want something. We both want the same thing. We are here to support you to find that. We've got all kinds of time for you to figure this out. So you know what? Just come here, get comfortable, do your thing, and we're going to try and get everything that we can get out of you. We want that. You want that. Let's do it together. It's basically what the Winnipeg Jets have had to try to do to get where they are, and they've done it well. They did it with with Niederreiter. They did it with Vladislav Namestnikov. They've done it with a lot of different players. Hey, they did it with Gabe Vilardi on the top line and found a whole other layer. You know, how many people thought Gabe Vilardi was going to be, as quickly as he was in Winnipeg, what he ended up being when he was coming from LA? I don't think very many people saw that coming. So I think the Jets, and this is the thing, I get out there that there's a whole bunch of people that are upset that the Jets didn't get Brock Besser and that Mitch Marner didn't say, forget all this, I'm just going to go to unrestricted free agency and I'm going to go sign with the Winnipeg Jets. And there's a lot of people who shake their fists and, stab the air with their pitchforks and all these kind of things because the Jets aren't making those signings. Well, guess what, folks? The Jets are never making those signings. That doesn't happen. All you out there who talked about how the Jets are going to get to be on the cusp, a cup team, and everyone's going to be dying to sign here, it's not happening. It's never going to happen. Take a look at what's happened. The Jets have been a competitive team for a long time. Unrestricted free agents don't walk to Winnipeg and be the top guy in the class and sign for 8 years. It just doesn't happen. So I know that people are looking at a guy like Jonathan Toews, and we'll dig into him tomorrow. And I know that people are looking at a guy like Nyquist and saying, yeah, but it's a risk. It's a risk. It's a risk. Well, that's the game the Jets have to play in unrestricted free agency. They have to play the risk game. They have to play the we think we see value that nobody else sees. So think of it, if you've ever watched Moneyball, like the Oakland A's, they go find specific things about players that they think will fit their system, and they do whatever they can to try and get that one thing out, and they recreate players in the aggregate. I see Nyquist as supposed to be the replacement for Nikolai Ehlers. Is he going to be as good as Ehlers? No, he's not going to be. I'm going to say that definitively. But I will say the Winnipeg Jets, if you take a look at what their other options are, and to, take away your idea of like, they could have signed this guy, they could have signed this guy, they could have signed this guy, and been really honest with yourself of, was Brock Besser ever coming here? Was Mitch Marner ever coming here? If you move past that and look what the Jets, the parameters the Jets actually have to work in, they're a team that has to go find that hidden value in guys. And if they can get Gus Nyquist back to being what he was a couple of years ago, if they can get Jonathan Toews to be a representation of what he was not that long ago, there's a decent chance that the Winnipeg Jets are able to kind of recreate what they had with the second line last year. And if it doesn't work out, you have to ask yourself this question: with what you have with Lowry, with what you have with the fourth line, with what you have on defense, with what you have in your Hart Trophy winning goaltender, and what you have on the top line, is there enough with that team to get you over the playoff line? Because if there is, and I'm gambling that they are, Ken, I think they're going to the playoffs for sure. If you are able to get there and Nyquist just isn't quite working out and Toews just isn't quite working out, then you at least have the chance at the trade deadline to try and address it there. So to me, I take a look at this. I personally can think that this is the most successful, unrestricted free agency season that the Winnipeg Jets have ever had. It's not a high bar, folks, but I think they got over that bar. I think that everything here that they've tried makes sense. I think if it works out as best as it possibly could, it's going to be a home run. I think that if it doesn't work out, they're smart players who are at least able to not quite cost you. And I think it's enough to get over the playoff line and address holes should those end up being holes in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd argue with you is that, I mean, the interest in Brock Besser's interest in the Jets was legitimate. I think the Jets made a very competitive offer, but ultimately I think that we kind of got fooled by how the Besser situation was handled by Vancouver and just how it was sort of botched at the deadline and how it was kind of awkward how they said with Alvin saying if you had actually heard the offers, you would have been embarrassed. Like that whole thing made it look like he was gone for sure. But I mean, again, Brock never really wanted to leave. So now he hears about all this interest. I mean, I think that the Jets were one of the teams at the front of the line in terms of what they were willing to offer for him. But when Besser gave up the 8th year from Vancouver, most people thought he was walking. So I think that was kind of one of the parts of the confusion there. But yeah, I mean, it's up to the players to show what they got. I mean, this is what I've said before. Yeah. I mean, we've been praising the Nashville Predators for their July 1st last year. They missed the playoffs. So for all the people that think that the season's over, because your team didn't win July 1st, I mean, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So the Jets are they're not a bad team, folks. I mean, is it going to be easy for them? No. Can they replicate what they did last year? That's going to be challenging. There's no doubt about that. But let's just patiently pace our way through this here. The Jets have a Hart Trophy winner in net who won 3 Vezinas. They have a defenseman in Josh Morrissey who was 4th in the Vezina or in the Norris Trophy balloting this year. They have a forward in Kyle Connor that had 97 points. Mark Scheifele is in contention to be on the Olympic team. Adam Lowry finished 10th in Selke voting and probably should have been higher. I mean, this is not a scrapyard for the Winnipeg Jets. They need a bunch of things to go right for them. But to think that they're suddenly going to go from 1st overall to 25th because one player, a very important player, is moving on, I don't think that that's the best way to be looking at the broad scope of the picture because this is a team that can defend and they have the best goalie in the league. So Jets are going to be competitive. Are they going to have some things that they're going to have to do better? Are they going to have a bunch of things line up for them? Sure. But as we've been listening to people, Sean, and on our show especially, the goal now isn't 1st overall. It's to be ready for the playoffs and for the Jets to be going deeper than 6 wins. Now that's where the hard work begins. First, finding out what you have over the 82, or maybe it's 60 games, and then making the adjustments necessary at the deadline to see if you can be a bona fide contender like they were last year. Now that's up to them.
I wanted to bring in some starred comments here. Tracy O says that players don't want to come to a Hart Trophy winning team makes me shake my head. Well, I guess the very obvious counter to that is the Hart Trophy is a regular season trophy. I don't think people are in it to win it. When it comes to the President's Trophy, they're in it to win the whole thing. And quite clearly, the Hart Trophy winner here in Winnipeg still remains an enigma in the playoffs and a problem to the degree that a large number of people came up to me and told me that they voted Connor Hellebuck for the Hart Trophy down the stretch in both the conference final and the final, and told me if they could redo their vote, they would have done that. But that's why it's a regular season award. You don't get to redo that. Phyllis says last year we hadn't just lost our best zone entry king and a line driver for whatever line he got on. We have a hole that's irreplaceable in the Jets with losing Nick Ehlers. I agree with this 100%, Phyllis. And this is why I don't think the Jets will be the team that they were last year. As much as I like what they did to try and replace this, I agree. Nick Ehlers is irreplaceable. I think when I said it, I think just alone in all these comeback wins that I'm marking, like mark it down right now, folks. All those come from behind victories that the Jets were pulling off over and over and over again. Knock 40% of those off. or more, maybe 60% of those off. I don't think you pull them off as easily when you don't have Nikolai Ehlers in your lineup. So I'm just saying I agree with Phyllis 100% here. I just am not quite as, it seems like she's pretty down on the Jets and their ability to go forward. Justin Dealey says here, last year, all of the ifs Renny is talking about turned out perfectly. How long can they really keep that kind of strategy up? It's a great question. My issue, and this is, I mean, this should clear up the way I think about this with everybody. I don't think they have an alternative. When you have a team that too many trade candidates say no to because they've got control of where they go, and they say no to Winnipeg, and you can't really bring in UFAs because they say no to Winnipeg, I think Justin's right. Like, eventually this strategy, well, the problem with it is, with this strategy, you keep adding guys in, but you're not kind of hitting a home run to the core, and the core is aging. This strategy is built on the idea that you're going to get it done with Connor Hellebuck, you're going to get it done with Mark Scheifele, you're going to get it done with Kyle Connor, and so on and so forth. And Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck are 32 years old, right? So this strategy is going to age out with the core. That is what makes you special. My response, though, is that I don't think the Jets have another option. Like, this is what's brought them success. It brought them a President's Trophy, and I just finished saying it. That's not the goal. And a lot of people aren't happy that, okay, whoop-de-doo, we won that. I still think it's an accomplishment. But you have to take a look and say the Winnipeg Jets are doing the best with what they've got. They're not a team that's going and adding a high-priced guy who didn't fit and it doesn't work out. Like, you can't look at Kevin Cheveldayoff and say, oh, we signed Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, and it didn't fit our style, and it was a complete and total abomination, and it didn't work. You can't credit, or you can't attack Kevin Cheveldayoff for that, because for the most part, outside of like the Tyler Toffoli's and maybe the Kevin Hayes, almost everyone that Kevin has brought in has fit and has jived. The question isn't who he brings in typically, it's who will come in. And until you can get players who are just going to come in, you have to go and you have to try, and the line from Moneyball is you have to try and recreate it in the aggregate. That's how you end up with guys like Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, so on and so forth. It's worked to make the Winnipeg Jets a great regular season team and a very hard team to play against. I think, Ken, the way that you solve that is trying to pull off home runs at the trade deadline, which are not easy, because if they're the biggest of the big players, quite often they won't come here. That said, a lot of them will, because it's only a couple of months, and you get the Sean Monahans and players like that of the world who are like, hey, I'll go to Winnipeg, who I think is primed to win a cup, and I'll spend the next 3 months there, and then I'll leave an unrestricted free agency after that. So to me, until someone can present to me a very definitive, all the people out there who are criticizing what the Winnipeg Jets are doing, and I'm not saying don't criticize everyone, for sure, beat the bushes, try and find another way is what I'm saying. I just haven't heard someone say, well, actually, this should be the strategy. And I look at it and be like, that's it. They've got it. They've solved the caramel secret. Right now, I think this is the best way of doing it, the way the Winnipeg Jets are handling it.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why those deals we talked about are 1-year deals is so that, that guys like Brad Lambert, Braden Yager, Colby Barlow, Elias Solomonson, Kevin He, eventually Kieran Walton, those type of players, Sasha Boumedian, that they're not blocked for a long stretch of time. And if those players that signed here like it here, maybe they'll extend here. But I mean, it's up to those guys to play well. And that's the way it's going to be. I mean, I would just, again, and folks can say whatever they want. You can criticize me. You can say whatever. But last year at this time, we talked to a lot of our colleagues who said the Jets were going to miss the playoffs, and they followed that up by having their best season. And as I mentioned, the Jets are well coached, and they still have their core players are intact, except for one very important one who is departing. I just don't think it's doom and gloom or sky is falling in terms of that. But again, fans can feel how they feel. That's their job. My job is to try to present a picture of what I see. This will be the 4th year the Jets are committed to playing strong defensively. Are they going to score as much without Ehlers? Probably not. But they're not going to fall off a cliff either. They still have a bunch of productive players in their lineup. They're going to have to defend better. Eventually, they're going to have to be harder to play against. And then we're going to see how much else needs to be added and how Kevin Cheveldayoff handles that part of it. So,
Baby Yoda,
why the off season is fun. I mean,
yeah. Baby Yoda says here, what's the point of having a franchise if nobody wants to play here? Like, is that what he's really coming down to? I don't know if you're talking when you say, or that's what it's really coming down to. The Winnipeg Jets have been to the playoffs how many, since 2018, every single year except for one. We've seen a lot of really great hockey played here. You still see the best hockey players in the world. This isn't a problem unique to Winnipeg. This is like an issue in every league that you go around. We're not New York. We're not LA, we're not Dallas, we're not Miami, right? Like it's going to be tricky. But the Winnipeg, that's the fight. It's not about the destination, it's about the drive. If you ever go and tackle that Stanley Cup, like the Winnipeg Jets are solving a lot of problems. Best team in the regular season this last year. They finally went and they won a round in the playoffs. They're getting to the playoffs, which a lot of teams would be dreaming to. I imagine the people in Buffalo right now and how they would feel about having a Winnipeg Jets team if they could trade spots with the Winnipeg Jets right now in another market that has the same problems that the Winnipeg Jets have as far as bringing players in here. I mean, in the end, this sounds like such defeatist attitude. I mean, we've got the Winnipeg Jets, the city of Winnipeg has a team. Let's give it our best. That doesn't mean that, some people don't want to come here, fold the tent. I mean, let's go at it. That's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is the fight. Get in the fight. You've got some people get into fights and they're 6'3", 245 pounds and extremely athletic. And some people get into fights and they're 165 pounds and, 5'2", and they went and they took some kung fu and they end up knocking the other guy out, right? You got to find your own way. You got to find your own path. This is Winnipeg's path. Why lament it? Just travel the path as best you can. Okay. Is that it, Ken? Anything you want to say before we go?
No, just one other depth signing for the Jets that came down the pipe while we've been on. Mason Shaw returning on a 1-year deal to a contract after leading the Moose in scoring last year. He was not qualified, was an unrestricted free agent, weighed the market, and decided that sticking around was for him. All League minimum in the NHL.
Before we get rolling, I wanted to say I earned myself the Pristine Roofing wake-up call by mispronouncing Boumediene. Ken did as well. He should probably get that wake-up call, but he won't get it until after he does his 10 push-ups. But you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you call for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. And hey, folks, I'm going to throw North End Rick's number back up there because if you are interested in putting in someone that for their Pay It Forward program, someone needs a roof, new siding project, something like that, may not be able to handle it financially, send in your name and send in your reason. Kenny and Renny listener won it last time. Could happen again. So all you folks out there, get North End Rick, get a hold of him if there's someone in your life that you think makes sense like that. Also wanted to give a shout out to the fine folks at Cambrian Credit Union. Like I said, someone got a hold of me the other day and had
looking for a mortgage.
I love it when people do that. I've done that 5 times so far this year from you folks listening to Kenny and Renny. I'd love to do it 6, 7, 8, 9 dozens of times. So if you're looking for a mortgage or any kind of banking services that you may need, get a hold of me and I will put you in touch with the exact person you need to talk to at the exact location you need to talk to. Please feel free to do that. Also wanted to give the whole hot take thing. There's been a lot of the hot take things here. I think the one thing that I would say are the hot takes that keep coming up that always suggest that Kevin Cheveldayoff is sitting at the lake and not paying attention when it comes to unrestricted free agency season. And I think we've laid it out here pretty good. I take a look and I see that there's a very definitive blueprint at work with what Kevin Cheveldayoff is doing. Would it be easier to just go out and be like, we need to replace Nikolai Ehlers, let's go get Brock Besser, or let's go get Mitch Marner? Hey, for sure that would work. Do you really think, folks, do you really think it's because he's out at the lake and not paying attention? Really? Do you really think that? If you do, that would be your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stove inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years of heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has made the move. You will find, if you head down there, it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. Folks, you don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. You can just visit Flame and Comfort to do so. And of course, that's at 1465 St. James Street. Go check it out, people. It's a beauty. Ken, give a shout out to Sweet Lou.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Roll LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast. And folks, if you're going to the Kenny and Renny Year Ender on July 8th, you will see Lou Ferlin.
Yes, excellent stuff. As you'll see, the guys from the Johnston group, who Ken usually only sees when they slap him around the golf course. This guy always talking about how good he is on the golf course.
Oh, that's no, I don't say that.
The Johnston group boys, they're the real deal. They are the real deal, and they are the OGs when it comes to the Kenny and Renny Show. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You can look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more from the Kenny and Renny OGs. And shout out to the folks at the Keg. My nephew graduated from Lactabani Senior School. I promised him on the weekend, his favorite restaurant is the Keg. I promised him I was going to take him there. I'm going to try, like he could probably eat his own weight in steak from what I've seen. So Ken, I may need to borrow some money from you to pull this off in the next little while. I know you always got me covered. But you know what? We're going to choose one of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. As you know, folks, each location is finer than the last. And finally, Ken talked about the year ender at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is almost here, folks. I'm so excited. Tuesday, July 8th at 1-1290 Kenniston, the sold out Kenny and Renny year ender, where we will send her. Can't wait to see everybody there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be heading down there between now and then, or after that, to go try some of their amazing food, which you will get a really, really good taste of down there at the Kenny and Renny year ender. Also, their beer store, go check it out. They got a lot of great stuff there. Ken, anything to say before we get going and come back right away on Friday to talk the Jonathan Toews signing, which we know has happened, but we want to hear what he has to say about the whole thing. Anything to say until then?
No, just thanks again to Elliot Friedman for joining us from Sportsnet right out of the gate, and for Sasha Boumedian for joining us as well. Jets 2025 first rounder. Just, I know we've talked about this. Great personality, and just a guy I enjoy talking to. I know we didn't get into it today with him here, but he mentioned Miro Heiskanen is a player that he patterned his game after. And Sean, if he can work himself into that conversation at some point, I would say some of the unrest that we've seen in the chat room today will be diminishing in a few years.
Yeah. I just want to say, give a special thank you to you, Ken Wiebe, who did all the producing on today's show. I just had to come sit down in this chair after trying to pretend that I was a mechanic and knew what I was doing. Just had to sit down, and Elliot Friedman was right there, and Sasha Boumedian was right there. You did a great job putting together a great show here today, Ken. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate that. And
my pleasure.
Stacy, can I say what Stacy did? No, I can't. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can't. Okay. Never mind. Ken's wife, or Ken's significant other, better than Ken. I'll just leave it at that. That's how that'll go. Okay. Great job, Ken. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you going along for the ride. Great crowd on a Thursday afternoon.
Excellent work.
Can't wait to do it again tomorrow night as we break down.
Tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Tomorrow at 3 p.m. as we
tomorrow
break
night.
down Jonathan Toews. It's going to be a gooder. Thanks, folks, for joining us. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.